Every single day in the United States, processing plants across the country produce over 2 million pounds of plant-based meat alternatives. That number is not a projection for the future. It is happening right now, today, as you watch this video. These innovative facilities are transforming humble crops, like soybeans, peas, and wheat, into products that sizzle, bleed, and taste remarkably like traditional beef, chicken, and pork. But how exactly do scientists and food technologists turn yellow split peas into a juicy burger patty? What kind of industrial machines can restructure plant proteins to mimic the texture of animal muscle? And why are major meat processing companies investing billions of dollars into these revolutionary food labs? Welcome to AgriCraft, where we explore the cutting edge of American agriculture and food processing technology. Today, we are taking you inside the remarkable world of plant-based meat production, from the fields where protein-rich crops are cultivated to the high-tech laboratories where molecular gastronomy meets industrial-scale manufacturing. This is not your grandmother's veggie burger. This is precision agriculture meeting bioengineering in facilities that look more like pharmaceutical labs than traditional food processing plants. All will be revealed in this video. The concept of meat alternatives is not actually new. For centuries, Buddhist monks in East Asia crafted wheat gluten into meat-like textures, and by the late 1800s, Dr. John Harvey Kellogg was already experimenting with peanut-based meat substitutes at his Michigan sanitarium. But what we are witnessing today represents something fundamentally different. Modern plant-based meat is not simply a vegetarian alternative marketed to a niche audience. It is a wholesale reimagining of protein production designed to replicate the sensory experience of eating animal meat so precisely that even dedicated carnivores cannot always tell the difference in blind taste tests. The plant-based meat industry in the United States has exploded from a modest market worth approximately $400 million in 2015 to over $1.4 billion by 2023. Major American fast food chains now feature plant-based options alongside their traditional beef offerings, and grocery stores dedicate entire refrigerated sections to these products. Some processing plants in California and the Midwest now operate 24 hours a day to keep up with demand, churning out plant-based ground meat, sausages, chicken nuggets, and even seafood alternatives at scales that would have been unimaginable just a decade ago. Here is something that shocks most people. Producing 1 pound of plant-based meat typically requires 93% less land, 90% less greenhouse gas emissions, and 46% less energy compared to producing 1 pound of conventional beef. These are not estimates from advocacy groups but figures compiled by independent researchers studying the environmental footprint of protein production. As water resources become increasingly stressed across the American West and concerns about agricultural sustainability grow, these numbers have caught the attention of farmers, food scientists, and agricultural policymakers alike. Every plant-based meat product begins not in a laboratory but in farming fields across the American heartland. The most common protein sources are yellow peas, soybeans, mung beans, fava beans, and wheat. These crops are selected because they contain high concentrations of protein, typically ranging from 20 to 40% of their dry weight, and they grow reliably across diverse climates from North Dakota to Arkansas. Yellow peas have emerged as a particularly favored crop for plant-based meat production. Unlike soybeans, which dominate industrial agriculture, peas require minimal fertilizer input, fix their own nitrogen from the atmosphere, and thrive in cooler northern climates. Canadian and northern U.S. farmers have dramatically increased pea cultivation in recent years, with some operations dedicating thousands of acres specifically to supply protein extraction facilities. These are not your garden variety sweet peas. These are field peas bred specifically for protein content and consistent size, allowing for efficient mechanical harvesting and processing. Seed selection is critical. Agricultural research stations work with plant breeders to develop varieties optimized for industrial processing, rather than direct human consumption. These specialized cultivars might have higher protein concentrations, lower levels of compounds that cause off flavors, or physical characteristics that make them easier to harvest and process mechanically. A typical protein pea variety destined for plant-based meat production contains about 25% protein by weight and has been bred to minimize natural bitter compounds found in raw legumes. The cultivation process follows standard farming practices but with heightened attention to consistency. Farmers preparing crops for protein extraction typically plant in spring after the last frost, maintain precise soil moisture through the growing season, and monitor fields carefully for any pest or disease issues that might affect protein quality. The goal is not maximum yield per acre, but rather maximum protein content and uniformity, which matters enormously when these crops enter industrial processing. Environmental requirements vary by crop. Soybeans thrive in the humid continental climate of Iowa and Illinois. Peas prefer the cooler, drier conditions of Montana and Saskatchewan. Mung beans, increasingly popular in newer plant-based meat formulations, require warmer temperatures similar to traditional bean crops. This geographic diversity means that processing plants can source protein crops from multiple regions, reducing vulnerability to localized weather disruptions and creating economic opportunities for farmers across different agricultural zones. Harvest timing is determined not by visual ripeness but by protein content analysis. As crops mature, samples are regularly tested in mobile labs that travel to farming operations. Technicians measure moisture content, protein levels, and other quality markers. For yellow peas, optimal harvest typically occurs when moisture drops below 14% and protein content peaks. This precision timing ensures that the raw material entering processing plants meets exact specifications required for consistent meat alternative production. Modern harvesting is entirely mechanical. Massive combine harvesters equipped with specialized headers move through fields at speeds carefully calibrated to minimize seed damage. Unlike crops destined for direct food use, where visual appeal matters, protein crops for processing prioritize structural integrity at the molecular level. Split or crushed seeds are still usable, but intact seeds process more efficiently and yield higher quality protein isolates. Once harvested, crops are immediately transported to cleaning facilities or directly to processing plants. Speed matters here. Freshly harvested legumes contain residual moisture that, if not properly managed, can lead to mold growth or protein degradation. Large commercial operations use pneumatic conveying systems to move harvested crops from field trucks into climate-controlled storage silos where temperature and humidity are monitored constantly. Within these silos, conditions are maintained at around 60 degrees Fahrenheit, with humidity below 40% to preserve protein quality. Some of the most advanced operations use GPS-guided logistics to track individual loads from specific fields through the entire supply chain. This traceability allows processors to correlate final product quality with farming conditions, creating feedback loops that help farmers optimize cultivation practices specifically for protein extraction. A processor might determine that peas from fields with particular soil types or irrigation schedules yield protein with superior functional properties, information that becomes valuable for the next planting season. Transportation to processing plants often involves rail cars or large truck convoys. A single plant-based meat production facility might receive 50 to 100 truckloads of raw protein crops per day during peak season. Upon arrival, samples from each delivery undergo quality testing before acceptance. Protein content, moisture levels, and contamination screening are standard. Loads failing to meet specifications can be rejected or redirected to lower-value uses like animal feed. Inside the processing plant, transformation begins with industrial-scale cleaning. Raw crops pass through a series of mechanical cleaners that remove field debris, stones, damaged seeds, and foreign material. Sophisticated optical sorting machines use high-resolution cameras and compressed air jets to identify and eject discolored or malformed seeds at rates exceeding 10,000 seeds per second. This technology, originally developed for mining applications, has been adapted for food processing and represents one of the most impressive examples of automation in modern agriculture technology. After cleaning, whole seeds undergo milling. Industrial hammer mills or roller mills crack and grind seeds into fine flour. The particle size matters enormously for the next stage. Too coarse and protein extraction is inefficient. Too fine and the flour becomes difficult to process. Most operations target particle sizes between 200 and 400 microns, roughly the texture of fine cornmeal. These industrial machines can process 5 to 10 tons of seeds per hour, filling entire warehouse spaces with their rhythmic pounding. The milled flour then enters the protein extraction process, which is where plant-based meat production diverges dramatically from traditional food processing. The most common method is alkaline extraction. The flour is mixed with water and the pH is raised to around 9 or 10 using food-grade alkali solutions. At this elevated pH, proteins dissolve into the liquid, while carbohydrates, fibers, and other components remain as solids. Large mixing tanks, some holding 5,000 gallons or more, constantly agitate this slurry to maximize protein dissolution. After mixing for 1 to 2 hours, the slurry is pumped through industrial centrifuges or filtration systems that separate the protein-rich liquid from the solid residue. These centrifuges spin at thousands of revolutions per minute, generating forces strong enough to separate materials based on minute density differences. The solid residue, rich in fiber and carbohydrates, is not waste. It is dried and sold as animal feed or used in other food applications. Nothing is wasted in modern processing plants focused on sustainability metrics. The liquid protein solution then undergoes precipitation. The pH is adjusted downward to the protein's isoelectric point, typically around pH 4.5 for most legume proteins. At this pH, proteins lose their charge and clump together, falling out of solution as a thick curd. This is conceptually similar to making tofu from soy milk, but the scale is industrial. Precipitation tanks in major facilities can process 20,000 pounds of protein solution per batch. The precipitated protein curd is collected, washed to remove residual salts and off flavors, and then dried. Most facilities use spray dryers where the wet protein is atomized into a chamber of hot air. The moisture evaporates almost instantly, leaving behind a fine protein powder. These spray drying towers can stand 4 or 5 stories tall and process thousands of gallons of liquid protein per hour. The resulting powder, called protein isolate, is typically 85 to 90% pure protein. This white or slightly beige powder is the foundational ingredient for plant-based meat. Protein isolate powder, while nutritionally impressive, has none of the characteristics of meat. It is the texturization process that creates the fibrous, chewy quality that mimics animal muscle tissue. The primary technology used is high-moisture extrusion, a process that sounds simple but represents some of the most sophisticated food engineering in modern processing plants. The protein isolate is mixed with water, oils, and various functional ingredients including starches, fibers, and natural flavorings. This mixture, which looks like thick pancake batter, is fed into twin-screw extruders. These machines are the workhorses of plant-based meat production, and they are genuinely impressive pieces of industrial equipment. A single extruder might be 30 feet long, weigh 20 tons, and cost over $1 million. Inside the extruder, twin screws rotate in parallel, pushing the protein mixture forward while simultaneously heating, mixing, and applying intense mechanical shear. Temperatures inside the extruder barrel reach 250 to 300 degrees Fahrenheit, and pressures can exceed 100 pounds per square inch. These extreme conditions denature the proteins, causing them to unfold and realign. As the mixture is pushed forward through progressively narrower sections of the barrel, the proteins align parallel to the direction of flow, creating a fibrous structure. At the extruder exit, the pressurized protein mixture suddenly emerges into atmospheric pressure. This rapid pressure drop causes the material to expand slightly while the aligned proteins set into place. What emerges from the extruder die is a long, continuous rope of textured protein with a fibrous structure remarkably similar to chicken breast or lean beef. The material is still hot and pliable, and it is immediately cooled with chilled air or water sprays to lock in the texture. These textured protein ropes are then cut, shredded, or further processed, depending on the final product. For ground meat alternatives, the material is coarsely chopped to create irregular pieces of various sizes, mimicking the texture of ground beef. For whole muscle products like plant-based chicken breasts or steaks, larger pieces are carefully shaped and layered to create more complex structures. Flavoring and additional ingredient incorporation happen next. The textured protein, which at this stage tastes relatively bland, is mixed with vegetable oils for fat content, natural flavors derived from yeast extracts or mushroom powders for umami depth, and color additives. The most famous innovation in plant-based meat is the use of heme, an iron-containing molecule found in plants like soy that gives the products a blood-like quality and a distinctly meaty flavor. Some manufacturers use genetically engineered yeast to produce heme at scale, while others extract it directly from soy root nodules. This ingredient is what allows plant-based burgers to appear pink when raw and brown when cooked, mimicking the color transformation of real beef. Binders and texturizers are added to help everything hold together. Methyl cellulose, derived from plant cellulose, acts as a binder that melts when heated, allowing plant-based burgers to stay together during cooking. Konjac gum, extracted from a Japanese root vegetable, provides additional binding and a slight chew. These ingredients, combined in precise ratios determined by food scientists, transform what is essentially flavored protein foam into something that handles like meat during cooking. Quality inspection happens continuously throughout processing. Automated sensors monitor protein content, moisture levels, and texture properties in real time. Many facilities use texture analyzers that mechanically test samples every hour, measuring parameters like firmness, chewiness, and springiness. If these measurements drift outside acceptable ranges, adjustments are made immediately to extruder temperatures, pressures, or ingredient ratios. This level of process control ensures that a plant-based burger made today has the same texture and flavor profile as one made 6 months ago. Some of the most advanced facilities use machine learning algorithms trained on thousands of production runs to predict optimal processing parameters based on incoming raw material properties. If protein from a new harvest has slightly different characteristics, the system automatically adjusts processing conditions to compensate, maintaining consistent final product quality. After final formulation and mixing, plant-based meat products move to packaging lines that rival any industrial food manufacturing operation. For refrigerated products like ground meat alternatives, automated forming machines portion the material into precise weights, typically 12 or 16 ounces for retail packages. These machines use vacuum filling technology to eliminate air pockets and ensure consistent density throughout each package. Packaging itself is typically a multi-layer film designed to prevent oxygen penetration while allowing the product to be visible to consumers. Vacuum sealing or modified atmosphere packaging, where regular air is replaced with nitrogen or carbon dioxide, extends shelf life significantly. A properly packaged refrigerated plant-based meat product can maintain quality for 2 to 3 weeks, compared to just a few days for conventional ground beef. For frozen products, blast freezers reduce temperatures to -20 degrees Fahrenheit in minutes, creating small ice crystals that minimize texture damage. Some facilities use cryogenic freezing with liquid nitrogen, which freezes products so rapidly that ice crystal formation is virtually eliminated, preserving texture almost perfectly. Labeling happens automatically with high-speed printers applying nutrition information, ingredient lists, cooking instructions, and barcodes. Modern systems can personalize labels for different retail chains or markets without slowing production, switching seamlessly between formats as packages move along conveyor belts. Distribution cold chain management is critical. Plant-based meat products, despite being plant-based, are still perishable and require constant refrigeration or freezing from processing plant to retail shelf. Most facilities ship products the same day they are packaged, loading them directly into refrigerated trucks. GPS tracking and temperature sensors monitor every shipment, alerting logistics managers if temperatures rise above safe levels during transport. Some of the largest plant-based meat companies operate their own distribution networks specifically to maintain quality control through the entire supply chain. Others partner with established frozen food distributors who already service grocery stores and food service operations. The distribution challenge for plant-based meat is actually simpler than for conventional meat in one respect. Because the products are already cooked or shelf-stable, the food safety requirements, while still strict, do not require the same intensive hazard controls needed for raw animal products. The byproducts from plant-based meat production create additional value streams that improve overall sustainability and economics. The fiber and carbohydrate-rich material left after protein extraction is dried and sold as livestock feed, closing a loop where the non-protein components of crops like peas and soybeans still support animal agriculture. Some companies are exploring ways to ferment these byproducts into bioethanol or other bio-based chemicals, creating zero-waste processing facilities. Culinary applications for plant-based meat have expanded far beyond simple burger substitutes. Professional chefs are incorporating these ingredients into tacos, pasta sauces, stir-fries, and even traditionally meat-centric dishes like shepherd's pie or meatballs. The texture and flavor improvements in recent years mean that plant-based meat can be used in virtually any application where ground or chopped meat would traditionally appear. Cooking instructions for plant-based meat are remarkably similar to conventional meat. Most ground meat alternatives should be cooked to an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit for optimal texture and food safety. Though unlike conventional meat, there is no risk of bacterial contamination from animal sources. Many users report that plant-based meat browns better than conventional meat due to the added sugars and proteins in the formulation. Nutritional profiles vary by product but generally offer comparable protein content to conventional meat, while delivering zero cholesterol, more fiber, and significantly more iron in some formulations. A 4-ounce serving of plant-based ground beef alternative typically contains 19 to 20 grams of protein, matching conventional ground beef, while providing 3 to 4 grams of fiber that would be completely absent from animal meat. Sodium content tends to be higher in plant-based alternatives due to the need for flavor enhancement, something health-conscious consumers should consider. Environmental impact extends beyond the impressive land and water savings mentioned earlier. Conventional beef production is responsible for approximately 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions, much of it from methane produced during digestion. Plant-based alternatives eliminate these emissions entirely while requiring dramatically less agricultural land per pound of protein produced. As American farmland faces competing pressures from urban development, ethanol production, and conservation, the efficiency gains from plant-based protein production could free up millions of acres for other uses or ecological restoration. The technology behind plant-based meat is also being adapted for other protein challenges. Some companies are using similar protein isolation and texturization methods to create dairy alternatives, seafood alternatives, and even egg substitutes. The fundamental science of protein restructuring, once perfected for meat alternatives, turns out to be applicable across many categories of traditional animal-based foods, from fields of protein-rich peas and soybeans across the American Midwest to high-tech processing plants where industrial machines restructure proteins at the molecular level. Plant-based meat production represents one of the most dramatic innovations in modern food processing technology. This is agriculture meeting biotechnology, traditional farming feeding 21st-century protein engineering. In facilities where quality control rivals pharmaceutical manufacturing, and where the goal is not simply to create an alternative to meat, but to replicate it with such precision that the distinction becomes almost meaningless. We have followed the journey from cultivation and harvest through the remarkable transformation where whole seeds become protein isolates, and then witnessed the extrusion technology that creates fibrous textures mimicking animal muscle tissue. We have seen how flavoring, coloring, and binding systems turn bland protein into something that sizzles in a pan and satisfies meat cravings. And we have explored how automated packaging systems and cold chain distribution networks deliver these products to consumers within days of production, maintaining the quality and freshness that the modern market demands. The scale of this industry is already impressive, with processing plants across the United States producing millions of pounds of plant-based meat every week. But perhaps more remarkable is the rate of innovation. Each generation of products improves on the last, with better texture, more authentic flavors, and more competitive pricing. The convergence of sustainable farming, precision agriculture, and advanced food processing technology is creating protein products that were simply impossible even 10 years ago. Thank you for watching this exploration of plant-based meat production here on AgriCraft. If you found this look inside modern food processing technology fascinating, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into American agriculture, farming innovation, and the future of food production. What questions do you have about plant-based meat? Have you tried these products? What farming innovations would you like us to cover next? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring the remarkable technology feeding the world.